So that brings us to today. What are some dates that we should all be aware of?
Eclipses are always some of the most defining moments of the year. That does look pretty worrisome, as does March of next year.
I should sell all my coins.
There's only one way out from here, and that's up.
Welcome back, guys. Today I'm joined by Maren Altman. Most people here in crypto know you as the go-to source for predicting anything crypto market related to do with astrology. You have 1.3 million followers on TikTok now. That's pretty insane. A couple 100,000 on YouTube, big audience on Twitter. You got a lot of people watching you for this stuff, Maren. How does it feel? How did you get into this spot?
It's very weird because it's just little old me. I mean, right now I'm literally in my childhood bedroom. So this is not where the TikTok videos took place because I was already out and about doing that. But lifelong interest in astrology. I grew up being an actor, and then I went to New York, changed into studying philosophy, but was always really into astrology. So I felt like philosophy would support that better. I post videos about what I like. Literally no agenda, no strategy. I just talk about my life, which I'm into astrology. And then when I was predicting world events, mostly political, I began to look at finance during 2020, when I think a lot of people who were in their early 20s also began to look at finance because I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with being able to live. And so I figured might as well research actual finance and investing. And it blew up. So I guess you could say I didn't mean to get in this position, but I do what I want. So I kind of meant to do that because it's two things that became very interesting to me and apparently was very entertaining.
What is it called too? Is it just astrology, or am I getting that right? I'm a bit naive here. Is it a more specific thing?
Yeah, so I do astrology and also within that financial astrology. So if I'm looking at anything crypto related, it falls into financial astrology. So there's natal astrology, which natal charts are human charts, and then there's financial astrology. There's other things as well. So it's a field, but it's the same concepts and same language and techniques as any other form of astrology. You're just applying it to the market.
What were you doing with this before you got to financial astrology? You gave a really short rundown there, but I know that everyone knows you now for like predicting what Bitcoin's going to do, but like what is there any history you have of like predicting anything else? I know most people know horoscopes and that's about it. Like what else were you focused on?
So growing up, I was the girl at the sleepover that gave just people readings. But I always knew that I'd want to do something a little more serious. That once I got to high school and I was a teenager, I started tracking world events and political cycles. So it got a little weird, and I was tracking like war, combat, rise of fall of empires, different artistic epics, things like that. There's some pretty extensive literature on it in academia, actually. And even if it's not put under like the astrology label, they talk about planetary cycles throughout history. So once I got to college and I realized that I did really want to take this seriously and I switched to philosophy, I was tracking political cycles. And actually, the reason I got such a large following was because during 2020, I was predicting the election, the political events a few months earlier, leading up to about January 6th. And then those started to come true. And I kind of followed my earlier videos that had not blown up yet, and then those like subsequently blew up as I followed up. So I was doing actually politics. That's still what I find in the moment a little more interesting, because it's like I get to watch the people's charts and the financial charts, and I think it's all really cool how the context comes together. But through that, I found that tracking finance and tracking candlestick charts is very similar to tracking planets in the way that it's symbolism and patterns and angles, even like shapes, angles, knowing how that translates into psychological and world event significations. It's basically the same. I don't know if it's part of the brain, so to speak, but really same mental muscle activated. So it translated very well for me to move into financial astrology as soon as I started actually trading and tracking Bitcoin in 2020.
Got you. And before we talk about what you expect for Bitcoin, your track record here, all that, I'm curious, back on the political stuff. So you were able to predict that presidential election. Can you walk me through like the actual process of astrology, understanding where the moon is, and I'm sure there's so much more to it that I'm leaving out, but how that eventually leads to this candidate will win the presidential election? Like I'm struggling to understand the process of, here's what I'm analyzing, this is how I get the insight of the result.
So firstly, I get a lot of, I wouldn't say I get a lot of pushback because I don't like to say that I'm just attracting haters, but people say all the time it's 50-50. But that's not the series of events leading up to and following it. You know, that's one of the many. So the way that we're doing that is first and foremost, looking at a person's birth chart, seeing the certain geometric or planetary angles that are present there, and seeing how the current or upcoming sky is going to be making different angles to that. So there's positive angles that are supportive, 120 or 60 degrees, that can be involving certain planets that are furthermore positive. So it's an overlay of first order logic. If this, then that statements, you're essentially weighing out the amount of challenging ones, the amount of positive ones, and seeing what areas of life those are falling into. So patterns showing up in certain areas of someone's chart that would lead you to a conclusion if you compare it to someone else's chart. Because there were certain things happening in Biden's chart, for example, that have happened to every president that's ever won, or just simply much more positive indicators than Trump had at that time, as well as Kamala Harris's chart was off the charts, really incredible, and still is for 2024. So that combination of events made it pretty clear that that alone was going to be a Biden win. To reiterate that, basically, we're looking at certain patterns that involve planets, and certain patterns throughout history have been positive, certain patterns throughout history have been challenging. And you can put the current sky on anyone's chart to see which of those patterns is showing up. So it's pattern synthesis. It's not really a science or an art. It's very much reading a pattern and seeing that correlation develop. So that one call was just due to the overwhelming side on Biden and Kamala's chart specifically, and due to actually the unrest that followed that seemed to fall in line with that. And there were certain things. Trump's health looked really poor, and he did get COVID leading up to that. So all of these things are basically pattern synthesis in certain areas of someone's birth chart.
Don't quiz me at the end. I'm still gonna have no true idea on how that works. But pattern recognition, I get. Like that's a concept that anyone who's investing understands, uses, and that obviously brings you into now financial astrology, and you kind of gain this pretty insane following now based off of it. You said it came from those correct predictions. You brought that here. You've now been featured in like every major publication, Time Magazine, Business Insider, go down the list. What were some of the predictions in previous cycles, or like a track record for some people that are listening and saying, I don't get it, this still doesn't make sense, or maybe they're a hater and they think it can't work. Like, what is your, how have you found it useful here in crypto? How has it helped you predict some things? What were those things?
The first major call I remember was at the end of 2020, when I'd been making calls before that, but no one really cared, I guess you could say. Like, I didn't know there was crypto Twitter. End of 2020, when Bitcoin hit 20K, that was something that I'd been talking about. Not exact 20K. Like, you can't, at least I cannot predict an exact price very far out. I can say that it looks good, and then closer into the day, I can execute TA to like talk about that. But I was talking about the end of 2020 being like, this is really when this next really strong bull run is going to kick off, and Bitcoin hit 20K then. And then it corrected very strongly early January. And I remember the transit because was it like? It was, I think it was Reuters featured me for this one transit. It was Saturn crossing Bitcoin's Mercury. And I remember this because my dad goes, what the hell is this? Like, he knew I was doing this, but he was like, why are you in my Reuters? Like, what is this? And I just remember that date being, okay, well, this is suddenly blowing up. This is awfully weird. This is just me in my bedroom in New York making these videos. But those were the first set of calls, late 2020, early 2021, where I had been tracking and doing Bitcoin astrology for at least 6, if not more months, because it was kind of crept in, then I'd go back to other things. But that was when it really started to get picked up. And it was those early bull market euphoria transits that were just really, really strong that everyone wanted. And then when it would correct, it was, a really shocking big deal because people weren't used to that, or they were like deluding themselves during a bull market. So those two transits, late 2020, early 2021, were the really like first times of this. But some of the more, honestly, the more simple cycles are what just people tend to be most amazed at. Like Jupiter in a sign for a few months, it exits that sign, we pump. It enters that sign, huge dump. Like Jupiter in Pisces, the summer of 2020, and also the first few months of 2021, that transit is so easy to identify. Literally, it's like very simple. And that was the exact down market period. And people are like shocked at dates. I'm calls like, no, this is, you can look this up yourself. So that's happening again, October 28th. And that looks atrocious. But I think that some of the more significant calls I made were just very basic planetary transits. And as far as a track record, I'm working on backtesting to really figure that out. We're scraping my tweets and like really going to find it, because I can say number in wallet go up, but I want a metric as well. And so I am doing that. Yeah.
Especially having an audience that big. It's something that I think anyone on Twitter, even if you have a couple thousand or just your friends that you tell what you think Bitcoin's going to do, like the added stress you get from every single move is insane. And then you tack on 1 million people that are relying on you for predictions. It's a wild burden to have. Like, does that alter your predictions or how you're interpreting things at all?
I'd say it doesn't alter at all because I am already hated for being like the most negative fear mongering. Because I think if look at what's going on in the world right now. You want me to tell you that like, oh, geopolitically we're in a really great spot. Please. So I already feel like just immediately being someone that did not realize that I don't want to say off-putting, but fairly like blunt. I had to immediately get over being blamed or coddling people. And I to this day, like do if I am incorrect or you execute poorly because often even if I'm incorrect I didn't enter the trade. Then if I could see that my levels and my entry was not hit I didn't trade poorly. Like if I make a biased prediction then I'm waiting for that trigger to hit and I'm entering the trade. If it doesn't hit then I didn't really lose money, so that's like on you for bad ta or listening to me without your own indicators. So I'd say that it's if you begin taking responsibility for other people's actions, then you're going to feel bad and you're going to get in the cycle. If you just consistently put out content and let that show for itself, then I don't know. I just don't have time to feel bad for people. Like I've never even had a situation where it was like someone I've been incorrect plenty of times, but never one huge call where there was a like everyone has to go long. Like I don't speak like that, and I haven't ever had that happen. So I think that it's a level of like moral integrity just with yourself of it's both immoral to mislead and it's immoral to back down with yourself if you know you're simply providing value and that other people's interpretation about like whatever they do is on them. So I think I was forced to at first because I didn't know my personality meant that everyone was going to have that issue with me, so I had to get over it quickly or I would have stopped making content. But it provides now where I can make these videos and I really don't get that much pushback on that. I did initially and then people learned I don't respond to that. So
Nice. All right, so let's get into the Bitcoin, the crypto market now, because anywhere you look, the macro experts haven't gotten this right. Traders are getting chopped up. There's no one that can predict, and I was tired of just hearing the response of let's just wait until they stop raising rates. Like I know that can be a good game plan, but I would love to hear it if you have some kind of insight or some dates or when things are aligning. Even if someone doesn't believe it or I don't use it to trade, who knows? Maybe it lines up with something else that someone's using. Before we talk about your predictions for the rest of the year, though, did it help you in kind of expecting what was going to happen this year for 2022? Like I know 2022 is not playing out like a lot of people thought it would. It's not playing out like really anyone wants it to. Did it help you prepare for this and expect that we were going to have such a long bear market?
it did because it looked really, really very difficult very early on in 2022. So with this awareness, like I never saw this year as a market that like I saw it as oh we're going up, time to sell. Like it was just it looked like a sideways year. I'd say not a horrible. It's not until the end of the year, till like later this fall. But I didn't see. I think that being someone that kind of practices stoicism or really practices it and is just very neutral. Like I don't give a shit number upward. I literally don't care. I'm executing a pattern. It could be 1 0, 100 zeros. I don't give a shit. Um, because of that, I feel like I didn't need to one. Actually, I did. End of 2021, I actually had a tweet out where it's like, LMAO, what if this actually happens? And I drew like just like a zigzag like down. And then I explained like why that was a meme, but that like why the astrology was just very not it goes down starting like beginning of the summer and then kind of sideways. Um, I remember seeing that it just got like really poor, like really, it got high engagement out of hate. Like everyone was just really against it. And I think that this, both astrology and my own kind of philosophy of just being, I don't care number up or down, so I'll be open about it, did help because it meant that I was like personally in a good position and I wasn't, I was not at all like kind of being tortured by huge swings in the market.
All right, so that brings us to today, because I'm not asking you to predict the bottom. I know sometimes you can really just give dates in the future as to when things will change or when trends will change or, as you said, the angles will change and how they help you see it. What is like a rough outlook on currently how things are going or what astrology tells us about the current environment and maybe the next 3 to 6 months? Because I think everyone, myself included, no one's too worried about how this is all going to do in 2 years or 3 years. If you're still invested in Bitcoin, I imagine your faith isn't shaken in that. It's more just a question of are we going to keep selling off for another 3 months for the rest of the year? Like, can this turn around in the next 6 months? Can people start making money again? Because if they can, it's like, man, this is going to be a really long next 6 months. So what are some dates or some key developments you're watching that we should all be aware of?
Very, I'd say very, very bearish for the eclipse season of October 25th to November 8th. I mean, that just looks horrible on world levels. Like, it's the kind of thing where just months, years ago, it was like, this looks really bad. The way it's playing into geopolitical charts, it looks midterm elections, it looks like just the market is kind of the least of our worries. I like to say, like, it looks very bad for the market, but that's not the main like issue.
And
So I
I
don't
just
see.
want to pause you there right there real quick. I don't want to cut you off, but what is the eclipse chart? Like, how does that help you
Yeah.
show that? Just so I can understand better.
So eclipses are always some of the most defining moments of the year because it's where sun and the moon and some of those other planets are on the edges of the ecliptic, which is the edges of where the sun can orbit, either on the north or the south side. So these events tend to be the catalyst events to define the year. Going back several years, you can see that it was either like major protests, major like the eclipses tend to be the defining moments for the year when you really think back to like, oh, what was 2020? Oh, it was the eclipse season in June, which was like the BLM George Floyd protests and everything going on during that. And then it was the end of the year, which is when there were riots and electoral college, like election BS. So the eclipses happened like very clearly that year. I just remember because that was the year I was tracking super, super intensely. And there are already dates to look out at. The alignment of this eclipse, October 25th and November 8th, are to say the least just a combination of like, oh god, like just several things where it's not one like, oh that's bad, oh that it's like, oh my god, and like with just things being announced in Russia and how active it is in like certain charts with that, it's like, oh dear god. So multiple things overlaid where with astrology it needs multiple things to be able to confirm one way or another. If it's
Right.
one inconvenience, okay, whatever, that's normal, but like multiple at once. So already eclipse season, I mean, time and time again tends to be horrible for markets every single year. So this just looks very, very bad. Jupiter re-enters Pisces as well, which it's there for the last 2 months of the year. And every time it's been in Pisces the last few years, that has been the bear market periods, whether it was May into July 2021, December until May of this year, which was a little bit like, it was just so bad. So that does look pretty worrisome, as does March of next year.
You said that was October. The eclipse season was like early October. Does that mean it's in play for the rest of the year? Is that what you're saying, or specifically at the beginning of October?
So beginning of October is like not good, but it's not like that bad.
Okay.
It's like probably down, but down sideways. October 25th is when the eclipse is. And then November 8th is the second eclipse. So it's a 2 week period where it just looks, yeah, not good.
I should sell all my coins.
Maybe like do something weird. Like I whenever people ask me buy or sell, I'm like, I tell them to like just I don't know, loan them or something. It depends. I would just hold at this point. At this point, I'm just telling the really really desperate people that maybe my friends. Like I've known some friends and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like I held it together. I didn't ask you for help. What do I do? And I'm just like, just fucking like close your wallet for 4 years. Then look at it. So that's what I'm generally doing.
That's
Yeah.
always gonna be good advice for the next 4 years. All right, so from that period, end of October until November 8th, eclipse season, something to watch out for. And then you were going on about next year, March. Is there another date we should watch out for, and do things get better?
March, I don't have a specific date because I just don't have it off the top of my head, but there's really, really difficult transits next March, as well as new difficult transits. And April, May of next year is the end of this eclipse cycle. So eclipse cycles are a year and a half long, and they're only active for 2 weeks, 3 times in that period. But the same cycle is present in the background during that time, basically. It's the ending of that April, May of next year. So March looks really bad. Then end of April, early May of next year looks really bad. So it's not until we clear that out, like second half of 2023, that I'm even remotely expecting market back to stability. And I think 2024 is more when we'll actually have the ability to regain trust because quantitative tightening might be a little bit finished by then.
And I've seen in the past sometimes you pick out these dates, like you just said March. You don't have the specific date off the top of your head. In the past, I've seen you kind of call out like a year or two in advance. You'll say something massive is going to happen on X date. What does that mean when you have just a date, but you don't necessarily know if it's going to be positive or negative? Like the reason I'm asking is there a potential that March, April, May of next year roll around, you say, well, this is going to be an important date, and it looks like it's positive now? Like, can this eclipse season change? I think I'm asking for everyone. Can this get better? Or does it
Yeah.
have to be bad?
So
Have to be bad?
with the dates that I throw out, if I'm not throwing out blatantly bullish or bearish, it's because I literally just want to fuck with people, but I'm clear about it in videos. Like I'm always clear about it, like in my videos. I just know that people are lazy, so I just want to fuck with them, and I'm like ominous, whatever. So whenever I see people who are like, she's vague, I'm like, look at literally any other tweet besides the ones that are vague, like any other tweet besides the two that I put out. So I'd say no. I could be wrong. But it looks like horrible. So If I'm wrong, I doubt it's on this call. But I mean, I welcome the universe to humble me. How do I learn otherwise? So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I hope that everyone else is right, basically.
Oh man, that's not good news, Maren. I invited you on. I was hoping you were going to have some date. You were going to say, December 15th or early next year, and you're dropping these dates for me, and you said it just gets worse and worse.
Middle of October is a little bit okay. It's decent. I'd say like October 10th until the 25th, like that middle period between the full moon and the new moon, basically. It's decent. I think like if you really need to sell, liquidity available then. But otherwise, yeah, no, it's not. It's not. This is why I'm disliked. But I take it. Yeah.
This isn't. So what if I wanted to start incorporating this? Like, what if I wanted to learn how to do this and maybe get my own twist on it? If you asked 10 different financial astrologists, would they all come up with the same thing? Like if you're at a certain level of understanding, do you all kind of, if I asked 5 other ones, would they say, yeah, that all does look negative on this eclipse season? Or let's say I become an expert at this and my interpretation is that it's bullish. Could I, is there 2 ways to do it? And how would I even go about learning about this?
I'd say generally there's a really strong consensus because astrology is basically first order logic, like if this, then that statements pretty clearly. The way that people can disagree is on either the intensity, they can weigh certain things differently, be like, this usually is like this, or they can literally bring in some weird random technique and it's like, okay, all right, sir, like have fun with that. Like they can bring in some really weird things like speeds and proximity to the sun and very like more exotic things, which I don't have experience with, and I literally don't even track, so I can't even comment on whether they work or not, some of the more exotic things. So I'd say 8 times out of 10, we're all on the same page, even if we came to it by slightly different things, because usually all paths will lead to the same thing, kind of like if you're using specific TA indicators or other ones. Like it's generally, you're going to figure it out to be similar. Now, if you wanted to get into this, I talk about like if you want to get into financial astrology, you're going to need to learn astrology itself first, which is understanding planetary geometry. So memorizing the planets, memorizing what all the angles mean, being able to read actual astrology ephemerae, which are like planets around the sky. So it's a lot like learning how to read candlestick charts, but like there's 10 versions. And it's people do this all the time. A lot of young girls are fucking experts at this. So like it's definitely doable, but it's something where you have to be fluent in that language to apply it to the TA. Because TA, you have to execute a trade. You can't just make a call. If you want to be a financial astrology trader, you have to be able to trade based on TA too. So you're learning both skills and it's a little ridiculous. And maybe you just learn the TA and you fuck the astrology. But I myself like to use it, and you're going to need to memorize the basic concepts of planets, the angles that are present during with those, and also how to apply multiple charts at once to look at it all. So it is crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, but I am tempted. I mean, I have a lot of free time right now. I'm tempted to learn some of those more exotic, like speed, distance from the sun. If I can come up with some theory and somehow pull a bullish narrative out of this, I think it might be worth doing.
Major respect if you get to do that. I would.
We'll see what I can do. If we keep trading like this, I might have to do that because, as I said, you ask the macro people, the value investors, the TradFi people have given up. Jamie Dimon said Bitcoin's a scam today. And so I was hoping you'd come on and give something bullish. It looks like, though, outlook is not so positive. But Maren, Thank you so much for your time anyways, keeping it real, giving your actual outlook for people listening. If you do want to follow along and see if there's anything to this, her socials are down below. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Maren, you're everywhere, and I appreciate you coming on. Please let me know if anything changes with the eclipse, all right? If there's anything I can do too, I'll check out the moon or whatever I need to do. I can get some info. I'll do the research on the more exotic stuff, maybe pass it along to you. If we can find a way to make this positive, I'm all for it.
When I'm back on in a few years and I'm really bullish, we'll be able to make up for it.